Hello fellow Hunters of the Blue and welcome to my channel and welcome to another entry in the Easy NMM series. In this third entry I will be showcasing how to paint a super nice looking steel NMM and I will be using stippling to achieve it. Each episode of the series features a different recipe and a different technique. All of them are interchangeable, so if you prefer layering or texture blending, go and check the previous entries and feel free to use the colors featured here, there, or vice versa. But before we start, just a quick reminder that now I have exclusive painting videos on Patreon. For example, these amazing videos on painting cloth. Check the link below if you want to know more. Let's get cracking. As you can see, we are starting from a base coat of a mix of 1 part Thunderhawk blue and 1 part black. And I like to introduce a tone to the NMM so it's not just pure black and white, because that's first of all very difficult to work with, and second of all just plain boring. So I have chosen to give this a colder look. I already have a video on a warmer tone. You can use this same technique with that other recipe, and I also tried to avoid any of the recesses and just kept them black, just because it's so much easier if you are careful now, but we will fix any mistakes with black later on. And our first step is going to be to sketch our highlights. If you want to see how I approach that and a super easy and intuitive method to do that, just watch the previous video in this entry. I will leave a link in the top right corner. For my sketch, I'm going to use a 1-to-1 mix of Administratum Grey and Thunderhawk Blue. Again, I'm going to try and avoid picking up any of the recesses, but if they get some paint in them, it's not a big deal. Also, we need to remember that we need to pick more area than what we think our highlight is going to take in the end, just because we're going to blend in between these two tones with a darker color, so the highlights are going to be reduced. You can do the edge highlights now if you feel like it, but you don't need to. We can wait on those and do them later on. And this is just an initial sketch. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the better we do it now, the easier things will be for us in the long term. So with our initial sketch now finished, at least in the leg area, you know I was going to paint just the leg. Now it's time to start blending this, and I will use a stippling because I haven't shown you stippling yet, and I think it's a great technique to learn. So for the intermediate color, I'm going to use a mix of 3 parts Thunderhawk Blue and 1 part Abaddon Black. And I'm going to thin my intermediate tone of the stippling color to a sort of a heavy glaze consistency. You don't want to use full strength, like layer strength paints for this. It just doesn't work. It works better if we glaze with our stippling. And you can use a smaller brush, that would probably help you quite a lot, but I'm just going to use my big chunky brush. In this case I just grab one from my box, and this is a size 3 Winsor & Newton, but it doesn't really matter which brush you use. I'm going to start doing dots of this in the point where the two colors get together, and because this is transparent, it's going to start blending everything really nicely. The thinner you have your paint, the more passes you will have to do, but the better the end result is going to be. And this looks tedious, and it can be, especially in a big miniature, but it's also quite quick once you get the hang of it. And the results are really fast, which, you know, that dopamine hit is always useful. With that initial pass of stippling of the intermediate tone, this is looking quite good already. It's very smooth, and we're going to go back to our highlight or our initial sketch color. This is the 1 part Administratum, 1 part Thunderhawk, and I'm going to stipple the other way. So I'm going to, go back to the transition and stipple the other way around. Again, my paint is very thin. In this case, I want it to be a little bit thinner because this is a highlight color and thus has more white, and it's going to be more opaque. So we really need to go slowly here. And we don't have to do a lot with this. This pass is just to smooth out some of the inconsistencies of the base coat, of the sketch, and to blend a little bit more, but we don't need much here, because most of this is going to be covered with subsequent highlights. We're going to highlight even more after this is done. At some point when we are doing this, we need to stop and do our edge highlights. We can do this at any stage. We can wait until the very end, we can do it at the very beginning, or we can do it now. And I'm just going to choose to do them now for no particular reason, just, well, I just want to do them now. Adding the edge highlights is going to help us in making this look a little bit more finished. And I'm going to use my sketch color for this, just because, well, that's the highlight I have there. So I'm just going to start adding all of these nice edge highlights. And again, this is going to help massively with the metallic look. It's very important to add edge highlights when doing NMM. It does like finish the whole metallic look. Without them, it just feels empty. If he has any dents in the armor, I'm going to add them now. I am working with the paint a little bit thinned down. I'm not working with full strength paint here, and you shouldn't. This step is rather simple. Just go around picking all of the edges as thinly as you can. The thinner the edges, the more realistic and heavy the model is going to look. So I encourage you to try and do the edges as thinly as you can pull them off. At this point, where we are not like 100% invested into this, it's a good idea to go and pick up all of the recesses so we have a clean looking miniature. So in this case, I'm just going to go around picking up all of these runes. We just got a little bit of paint into them, and I want them nice and dark so they are easy to read. But if you need to pick up any of these separating recesses between different elements, do so now. Now that we have everything more or less defined and it's looking good, we are happy with it, it's time to move on to the final stage of highlighting. It's not going to be the final stage. I'm going to do this in at least a couple of stages, but the first one is going to be a 1-to-1 mix of Administratum Grey and Ulthuan Grey. And for this, I'm just going to go straight into stippling. I'm not going to sketch it out. Very thin paint, and I'm going to start building this stippling up straight away. I'm starting from the area of maximum highlight, just stippling my way in, and I will do several rounds of stippling, each one taking less and less space. Remember, we have thin paint in the brush, so that means we are essentially glazing with little dots. So think about the same motions as glazing, and you can see how it starts to build up very nicely. If you feel like you messed up this stage or your transition is not smooth enough, feel free to go back to your 1-to-1 mix of Administratum and Thunderhawk and make this and smooth the transition in the other direction. But if you thin your paint enough and you do small dots, as you build up the layers, each one taking less and less space, you will start to see the colors showing through. Again, as with glazing, the key is very little paint on the brush and controlled and small motions. We will also pick up the most prominent edges with this after we are finished. I've been doing it here on these side armors as I've been doing the stippling motion, but for example here I will also pick them up in the direction that my light is coming from, mostly. Now that we have our main highlight done, is now to move into the final highlight. This would be just pure white, and I'm going to do exactly the same process, a thinned down version of the white. We actually don't need it to be that thinned down now, because the color that we have already there has quite a lot of white, so we can be a little bit more reckless, but we still want it thinned down, and we're just going to apply a very small, very concentrated highlight using pure white. Our leg is basically finished, and if you like it like this, you can stop at this point. But I feel like on this side of the leg, especially around here and here, it looks a bit poor, so I want to add a little bit of a secondary reflection. And I could have just sketched that out because I knew I was going to need it, but I want to show you that you don't need to do the sketch part, especially if you're going to do a small highlights. And for this, I'm just going to go to my sketch mix. This is the one-to-one of Thunderhawk and Administratum, and I'm going to add a secondary reflection just by stippling. And you can see that by going thin, we can do incredibly big jumps in terms of value, and it's going to look quite good. And finally, I think I'm going to go to my Administratum and Ulthuan mix to do just the very smallest highlight. And I don't want full opacity here. I just want to make the chunkiest part of this secondary reflection just that bit brighter. And there you have it, a super sexy Necron leg for your delight. I love how good this looks, and I had so much fun trying a blending method I don't normally use in my day-to-day, but I'm surely going to integrate more in my workflow. Thank you for watching this video, and don't forget that if you like my videos and want to help me make them, you can follow me on social media. You have the links to all my social media in the description below and in the pinned comment of this video. Share and like this video, but most importantly, there is Patreon and channel members. Patrons and members allow me to do all the cool videos that I want to make and to keep releasing videos for free here too. Perks include access to an amazing Discord community full of lovely people, access to many more painting exclusive videos, and private one-on-one online tutorings. Help me enjoy the list of the coolest persons in the planet, including Quitam Go, TTSS Productions, D&D JPG, Dennis Benshiden, Jay Huber, Borja Góngora, Frey, Nicholas Acebar, Minis by Ape, Will Harris, Space Cat, Benjilin, William February Albeo, Alexander Dutton, Jessica Curtis, Emily Queen of the Sloths, Nicholas Davis, Igon David, James Pretel, Pablo Cuesta, Benjamin Barbet, Tom Pausi, Pumpkin Hill, Chris Black, Ben, Jacob, Mateusz Babiuk, Andrei Michensko, Aaron Miller, Jake Staines, Stefan Zimmerman, Andrew Walden, Ton, Dr. Mike, Martin Reveroa, Sexual, PJM, David Ridey, Matt Wallis, Cross24, Robert Macmillan, Corey Hoffman, Mark Carter, Chester Ross, Matt Griffiths, Arkelaos, Tyler Hughes, Chris Gilroy, Allman Gaming, Spicy Joe, Mark Watson, Hamish Donald, Matthew Lang, Íñigo García, Stavros Stavro, Shinji Wo, Mar Reguera, Romain, Ars Miniatura, DanceX92, Just Rex, Joe Ofu, Dr. Cathaver, Angelos Alex Sous, Alastis, Rainer Hochbar, Mark Bellincoop, Felix Franke, Aaron Bernstein, Stefan Franiati, Daniel Ramin, Bolsey, Phil Wahlberg, Terry Denham, Plunge, Beyond, Howard Holbit, Stephanie All, Robert Smith, Painting Peter, Stefan Rockford, Chris Broga, Roger Nilsson, Oscar Jonathan Thornberg, Ning Nguyen, Dan Mako, Cristalios, Kevin Mian, Darcy Farrar, Natius Maximus, Arondel, Javi Mota, Eamon Patton, Alan Thaxton, Gareth Smith, Heather Dunstep, Mark Atkinson, Mark Jarvis, Fergal, Josh Simpson, Christoph Moret, G-Force, Dr. V, Bartolina Makahusa, Leonard Lindemann, Kieran Omurthail, and Kevin Sulars. And as for me, I will catch you in the next one. Bye!